vibration alarm for 12 p.m. Thank you. I so desperately want to move this chair. Okay, and did. Hey y'all, it's your girl Iyanna Pierre-Louis, and you are tuned in to another episode of the Archives of an Alchemist. It is with great pleasure to be in your earwaves once more. And if you're new here, welcome to the Archives. This is where we turn our hardships into gold. It is your beautiful host, Iyanna Pierre-Louis. I think I said my name. I don't recall. So I'm going to say it one more time for the people in the back. Hello. And yeah, well, this is the podcast where we talk about healing, where we talk about healing our generational line, our trauma, our childhood trauma. We talk a lot about connecting and building relationship with God. And we also talk about how to navigate this life still unscathed and still attempting to bring light into this world, even though this world is super hard. In the term and the scope of life being super hard, I feel like not only is my attire, but also if you could really look at outside, it's super gray and super gloomy. And one thing about it, I feel like these past 2 years I've embraced gloominess. I've embraced, feeling sad. I feel like I always used to be I was a toxic positivity. I was a religious script sayer. Just in the spectrum of, like, if things were going bad or if somebody was telling me something was wrong, I immediately met it with a level of positivity instead of sitting with the person's feelings. And although at the time it seemed as if it was a helpful thing to do, but I realized that the reason why I quickly wanted to just meet happiness was because of my fear of sadness. I was fearful of sitting with my emotions. I was fearful of feeling that for the extent of time that it takes to feel it. And I would run away from feeling it. I would just scarf myself with just trying to hurry up and get me to feel better and hurry up to get me to the other side of feelings. And that wasn't healthy. I feel like as human beings, we are meant to feel all range of emotions. And although some are higher than most, it doesn't mean that when you are actually sad, you hurry up and try to be happy just because you don't feel like you should be sad. You never actually deal with things when you try to hurry up and run to the next emotion. Instead, you're suppressing the emotion. Instead, you're putting it all the way down, and it's going to take a moment where things doesn't really seem like there's a correlation for you to actually reveal all of the hurt, all of the anger, all of the things that you've decided to put and bury all the way down because you felt like you didn't deserve or you couldn't or whatever. Actually sit in your emotions of feeling sad and navigate the emotion. It's not, because even our God speaks about how, how when we're angry, folks will tell you not to be angry or whatever because it's just an emotion that seems so violent and so contrast from happiness. So when people see anger, it's just like, oh my gosh, you need to not be that. Even though the person is hurt, even though something happened to them, we're told to hurry up and run through that emotion. Like if it's not joy, if it's not happiness, then all of the other emotions are told they can't be felt or they can't be sat with. For whatever reasons, my reasons were called, being sensitive or whatever, because even though I never actually sat in my emotions for long, I still sat longer than most because I feel like I am a water sign, so I do have a lot of emotions, but I still wasn't being my true self as far as how deep my sadness could really go and how deep my grieving can be. So I would hurry up and expedite my processes. Whole time I'm actually just burying things down and I'm carrying it to the next season, and I'm wondering, why am I in this new season? I'm actually receiving all that God has for me, and I'm still sad and I'm still grieving and I'm still doing these things. And it's because I never actually allocated those emotions for the seasons that I was in. I never really allowed myself to bask in how I felt. And there's a healthy way of doing it, because I can also understand how it can get to the point where I don't want to do anything, and I'm just in the bed for however long, and it looks very depressive. However, I feel like there are moments in life where it can be a little depressive. It can be a little staying in bed and not having the appetite sometimes, and it can feel that, and it can be that, and there are moments in your life that will knock you into that. And I feel like I would run away from it because of just like what it looks like and the idea and just how it makes you feel, especially if you're a person that feels like you need to consistently be productive in order to have value. So because I was that person, the person that felt like if I wasn't moving, I was lazy and I was all these things, even though I'm going through very traumatic experiences, I'm trying to hurry up my process because of just like what it looks like. I unfortunately brought the same emotions, same sadness, same unregulated, unsituated, never really dealt with emotions, and I'm bringing it to my seasons where it's supposed to give joy, where it's supposed to give mountaintop, where it's supposed to give, this is the next new beginning and all of these things, and I just don't decide to bring these emotions. Now I'm dealing with them now, and I'm in actually my happy season. And then guess what? Hard times roll back again. So imagine in the season where you're supposed to be sitting in your harvest and you're supposed to be in a space of joy, in a space of movement, because you're able to do the things that you probably weren't able to do the past season. But now, because you were grieving and you were actually feeling your sadness and you are feeling all of these emotions, now the hard times roll back again. And you are now entering right back into a season where it's going to require grieving and require mourning and growth and stretching and pruning and all of the things that require emotion. Because we're human beings. Like, if we don't actually like say, yo, this is a lot, if we don't actually humanize our experiences, we begin to dehumanize ourselves, and we're not made to be robots. And at some point, even robots crash. Even robots need to have a software, like they have software malfunctions. It doesn't matter how long that you have your equipment for. I could have a computer and I could have it from 2015, but it's 2020, the computer is going to start to break. It's going to start to have some wear and tear. Everything, if at some point, if it's being used total, moment after moment, time after time, it's going to crash. And because you don't allow yourself to do software updates, you don't allow yourself to close down and cry and feel, you're just overworking yourself. You're in hard drive at this point, because now you're pulling from an energy source that's not even. Because God can't help you if you don't actually show your level of desperation that you need help. God can't actually come and help you if you act like everything is cool, if you act like everything is fine. God cannot help you, because God is going to only help the version of you that you're saying that you are. So if you're saying that you're fine when deep down you're not actually fine, God is only going to meet the area of you that says that you're fine, because they're not going to come in and invite themselves into your situation that you decided that you're fine and you don't want to deal with it. You keep going. You pick up more shifts. You go party a lot more. You stay on the phone longer. You watch TV and you don't go to sleep. You're doing things to keep running from it, to keep burying it down, to keep suppressing it. God cannot come into an energy like that. It's not a welcoming environment for them. And this is coming from somebody who was operating like that. And it really took life. And life is, and life has, and life will. Like, that's the thing. And I feel like because I never really gave myself time to actually grieve and actually say, like, this hurts. Actually be honest with where I am, even to my community. Like, not putting up a front and not putting up a face that I'm okay. Like, if somebody asks me if I'm alright, I'm going to say I'm alright. I'm just taking it day by day, because that's really all I could say. I really am just alright, and I am just taking it day by day. I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, I'm amazing. I'm feeling blessed. Although I feel all of those things, and that's one thing about it. I believe it was Paul. And there's something where he says, like, I'd rather, like, be content. Like, contentment is just enough. Like, that's fine. Because God could deal with contentment, because that's us being honest with where we are. If life is burning around you, if you are that person, like, that's amazing, and I love that for you. However, I'm not. And I feel like there is a community who is not. And I feel like there's that community that wrestles with the idea as if, am I not having faith in God because I have these opposing emotions? Like, am I not still trusting God? Like, you actually, like, I'm talking to that community, the people who have their heart posture that's causing them to question, like, if me feeling my emotions is an abomination to God. And I just want to let you know it's not. I want to let you know even Jesus cried. Jesus cried when he thought his friend died, even though he knew he was going to rise him up. He still cried and he still grieved. Even though Jesus knew that he was about to, since the time he was on this earth, he already knew that he was about to sacrifice his life for us. But when it came down to it and they were about to come, he was crying tears of blood. Even though this is something he knew from the beginning of his inception. Like, emotions are welcomed. Emotions are actually our way of actually inviting God in. And I've been dealing with a lot of grief. I'm dealing with so much grief in this season. And it's so crazy because, baby, it's gray outside. I'm literally wearing all gray. And I be wearing all gray. Like, I don't run from it. This is actually the mood right now. How it looks is really the mood. And it's not negative. It's actually positive. It's very positive because I'm honest. We need to be honest with ourselves. We need to stop putting the mask on. We need to stop acting like all things are okay. But it's like, it's showing up in our actions, because if you truly believe that all things are okay, you're not doing destructive behaviors. You're not doing things that are going to hurt you in the long run. Because if you actually believe that you're going to come out of a season, this is not the time for you to be binge drinking, binge eating, binge whatever. Because you know once you're out of this season, you're going to have the accumulation of all of the things you were doing in the season prior. Like, it's not a surprise that you're binge eating in one season and then it's the next season and you're like, oh my gosh, I gained so much weight. What did you think was going to happen when you were drinking all the time, when you're eating all the time? Like, we be acting so oblivious. Like, what? How did this happen? It's like, baby, all of our actions lead into the next. And what I'm saying is, we need to also look at that from the framework of our emotions and of us dealing with our emotions and actually calling our emotions what they are and validating our experiences. If life is really crusty right now, it's cool to say that. But it's also cool to really believe that God is still going to make a way, and God you trust God, and you know that God is doing whatever they're doing in the background, and that because they're a good God, they can only do good things. Like, these are the things that you have to remind yourself when you're in these seasons, so you're doing well in them. So you're not going into the other things that will distract you and will numb you to get through it, but you're actually like feeling everything, feeling how it feels to be pruned, how it feels to be stretched, how it feels to be isolated, how it feels to be in a prison cell when you were told you're going to be a prince, like how it feels to actually like get the promise and have to wait for the promise, and feel how it feels to wait for real. And I feel like this is the first time like I'm waiting well, and it's showing up in this way. It's showing up in me wearing gray. It's showing up in me journaling and saying, God, what is happening? It shows up in me having my days where all I do is in the bed, because I'm not going to carry it on for weeks at a time. But what I'm going to say is, like, if I actually feel like I have no energy, I'm going to align with that feeling. I'm not going to try to push through it. What I will say is you need to have boundaries with these days. You can't go... We have power ultimately, and I know I have power. We have power. Sometimes we feel like our emotions have power over us, but they don't. We have the power. So I can still feel this way, but I'm not going to continue to do things that will keep me here. It's cool to feel the emotions, but the idea of feeling them is so we could push through them, not so we could stay in them. Because I know the next day is going to be another thing, and I know the next day is going to be another thing. There's a week where I'm literally feeling crusty, dusty, and all of the things, and I let myself feel that. And guess what? The next week is the total opposite of that, and I allow myself to feel that, and I feel everything once I receive it. You know, I'm not bringing the past shit into the new shit, and I think that's what I want to share, and I want that to be left with everybody, is to feel your stuff when it comes. Don't suppress it. It might feel ugly, it might feel dark, it might feel all of the things, but embrace it. Embrace it. Embrace it. But don't stay in it. And trust God through it. And know that even God cried, even God showed emotion. But you know what God did? He still got up. He still went to that cross. He still got up. He still rose his friend Lazarus from the dead. That's the message. The message is that you still can get up. You're not there for whatever you think that you're there for however long you think you should be there. You have a choice that you can get up and still push through and still see the promises of God and still believe that they are for you. Because they are. And that's where it gets crusty, and that's where it gets messed up, is where we actually lose sight of the promise, and we become like the Israelites. We lose sight of it. We let our circumstances overwhelm us, and we think like this is where we're meant to die. And that becomes where we end up dying at, because our belief, our mind, our thoughts become our actions. And if your actions are not producing in a way that aligns with your beliefs, then you are just continuing the cycle. You're continuing this season where you're meant, and you have all the power in your hands. The same power that rose Christ from the dead is within us. The same power. So imagine, you know how much power that is to rise something that is dead for 3 days up? Like, think of that amount of power, and think of it in the spectrum of yourself, and that you have that same power within you. So you can, like, it's not black and white. It's gray. That was corny. But I feel like it was so suiting. Because life is not black and white. It's not I'm sad or happy. No. You can have a mixture of both. I feel like where it becomes black and white is like if you're of God or if you're not. That's the only black and white thing I think that is through and through. Because you can be in the middle of certain things, but there's still a belief in God, and there's still actions that you're doing that show your belief in God. So for instance, I would say like for emotions and stuff like that, like I can't say I'm happy or sad, because I have things that I'm happy about, but I have things that I'm sad about. I would be lying if I said I'm happy. I'm only going to focus on the things that I'm very happy about and disregard the things that make me sad. Even though there's going to be certain seasons where there's going to be more things that make you sad than there are that make you happy. So you look at the four necessities that you have in your life and you're like, these are the things. And it's like, yes, that brings you back to gratitude. That brings you back to God. That brings you back to, hey, I'm very sad, and these are all of the things that are happening, and I don't know what you're about to do, God. Like, I'm losing a lot of things. Like, I don't know where is this going? I don't know. However, I know that you give me life. I know that you've given me a place to sleep. I know I don't have to worry about food. Like, these are the conversations. This is what brings us back to God. Because even when Job lost everything, he literally said, what he said? Though you slay me, I still trust you. Though ye slay me, I still trust you. Like, that is our posture when it comes to God. Because I think we run away from the slaying. We run away from this, how this is. We run away from it. It's sad. Because we just think we can't feel these emotions, because that's just like emotions that we shouldn't feel. Like, we need to just always be happy. Like, God says, like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong protocol. That's wrong religion. And that's keeping you suppressed. And the whole time you're doing self-destructive behaviors, but you don't recognize that you are, because the things that you're choosing, everybody else is choosing it. So many people are sad, but you will never know, because what are they doing? They're out all the time. They're out all the time. And there's a difference. I like going out. There's a difference, though. There's a difference between going out all the time and like going out. And there's also a difference between going out all the time, but you're only out because you're sad and you're running from your emotions and you don't want to be home, because that's when you think. Those two things are different. It's all about the intention. It's all about the foundation of our actions. So I'm speaking for those who, you actually are very tired. And whenever you go out, you're sleeping on the couch. You're literally falling asleep on the couch. You're so sad. But this is just the easiest thing for you to do instead of feeling how sad you are. I promise you, feeling your emotions is not as bad as a hangover. It's not as bad as waking up and not remembering how did you get there. It's not as bad as blank. We need to stop running from ourselves, because the day that we're met with ourselves, with the accumulation of everything that we were doing that we weren't supposed to be doing while we were in our seasons, that's when it becomes an even uglier picture. And I think we don't want that picture. And I'm dealing with a lot of grief. Like I said, I'm dealing with so much grief. And if you're new here, let me catch you up. So it's my Saturn return. So I just turned 30. So a lot of things are shifting in the atmosphere, energetically, astrologically. So that's one thing. But I'm also rebuilding myself in general, with a new career, with a new mindset towards that. I've lost a lot. I've lost my childhood home in this season, and I just regained relationship with my parents, but I had lost in that area, in my family in that area. I lost relationships, friends, guys that I was talking to that I thought that would be the thing, like friends that I thought would be the thing. Basically, I just lost a version of my life that I knew. I'm in a whole new version of my life, and I've never been here before, and I have so much more questions than I have answers, and I've been in a place like this for physically a year now, in terms of just feeling like I'm out of water. But in reality, God is pruning me. He is doing things in my life for sure. A lot of the things that I was afraid of doing, I'm doing them more boldly. A lot of the fears that I've had, as far as being fear of seen, fear of judged, fear of blank, I'm moving past those fears now. I have a new mindset when it comes to what I want to do with my money and my time here on earth. So I have acquired a lot of loss, but it has come with a lot of gain. But recently I am grieving the loss of my cat, Jasper. My black cat, I've had him since 2016, and he just recently passed like 2 weeks ago at this point, and I've just been grieving that for the past few weeks, and it's been super sad, bro. It's been super sad, bro. If I could be very honest, and I've been honest with my feelings. You know, I have days where I'm pushing through, and there's days where I'm just like, damn, I really don't have my dog. I really don't have my cat. I thought at least once I was done with this season and I move into my harvest, like I really thought like I was going to move into it with Jasper, you know, like he's been a very consistent figure in my life. So it's just really crazy, you know, when you have your ideas of what life is supposed to look like, or at least because you lost so much, you're like, oh my God, at least this one thing. And like, you know, God also can take that one thing that you're like, at least, you know, and you have to still trust that God is doing all of the things and that all of this is working for your good. And I'm not like fake saying it, like I truly do believe that, which is why I've been able to move and still even record right now, and still post on social media, and still like try to be social and not just like stay in my feelings. Like, yeah, I cried, I grieved, you know, the first 3 days, like I cried a lot. I laid in bed and I ate hot Cheetos and gummy clusters and drank red wine all before 11 a.m. Like I felt all of the things. Like that's my process, and as I grow as a human and as I grow my maturity with Cries, like it won't get like that. But as far as my process goes, like that's what it looked like for the first 2 days, but I didn't carry it on for a week. And I see that the more I allow myself to feel, the less recovery time it takes for me to actually sit in that and actually come back from my feelings and come back from my emotions. So I've been really grieving, and I've been really like going through it. And there's other factors that are playing in my life in tandem, you know? And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And I believe what I am learning in this season is how to grieve and like feel your emotions and to still keep going and to not allow your emotions to overpower you. Realize the power that you have over your emotions and over your body and your mind. Like the same power that rose Christ from the dead is the same power that lives within us. So really meditate on that, and really meditate on the story of Jesus and the resurrection, and the same Jesus that rose many people from the dead as miracles. Like, think of all of that, meditate on it, and think of it in the spectrum of you, and like, how did this power transfer to you, and how can you use this power in different ways, and how can you actually believe that you have the power. And since this is my new season of waiting well, like, I'm doing a lot of new things. So I'm telling you the things that I'm doing while I'm doing it. And you know what, next year, you know, if I'm here, whatever, God willing, there's going to be new trials, but I'm going to have more evidence because I'm doing it more like the way God wants us to do it. You know, God wants us to be honest with our pain and honest with our hurt. And the more we suppress and the more that we act like we're okay, the more we lose that connection that we can be having with God, that intimacy that we can be having with God. You know, the way that we can actually see God move in our lives when we move with faith, that they are still working in our lives despite what our circumstances show, because that's what faith is. Faith is believing in the unseen, because the unseen is forever. You know, the things that we see are temporary. So we can't really only allow our sight to be the only indicator that God is working. And right now my sight is showing me that God isn't working. And that's the enemy. And the enemy within myself, like, that's what my physical realm, Jasper dying is literally like a canon event, for real. Like, I feel like it had to happen. And there's certain things that are happening in your life that, like, they have to happen in order for you to become the person that God wants you to be. And this is coming, I don't know where this is coming from, truly. Like I said, God has been doing some things in me, so I'm able to speak from this level of wisdom and peace. Although this happened 2 weeks ago, you know, but I can't say that, I can't say like God is not going to turn this around, because then it would all be for nothing. And I just don't believe like all of this is for nothing. It can't be. Like, that's just, for what? Why? What would be the purpose of that? So that's just what you have to combat. Like, combat the thoughts and combat the impressions that are telling you that nothing is going to come out of it. Nothing is working in your favor. This is where you're going to die. Like, all of these thoughts that wrestle with you when you are met with your sadness and when you are met with your anger. Like, you're feeling like this is the emotions that you're going to feel for the rest of your life. No. Joy comes in the morning. All things, like, you can be angry, but you can't sleep angry. Like, that's what God says. Like, He allows us and tells us, feel your emotions, but try not to bring them into the next day. Don't try to bring them into your whole life, your whole way of moving, because you're going to miss God and you're going to miss the movements that are happening in your life, because you're just focusing on the things that aren't. You know, like, two things can be viewed at the same time. You can look at the things that aren't, but still have the idea and the belief that God, because of the things that are, that God is still working. Because if there are things that are still working, that means God is still working, period. Despite it all, despite the grievances, despite the deaths, despite the loss of relationships, despite all the things that are bursting in flames around you, if you're still with your life, God can still work. There's still things that can happen just from you being here. You're still alive. So that means there's still a way. And I'm just choosing not to allow my emotions to define me, because they don't. I define myself. I feel my emotions. I just don't stay there. And I believe that's how we should be moving, because we can't move into our next with the same emotions from our past. Just like right now, the same sky that was gray is now showing sun, and it's showing that it's blue and that there's way less clouds, and I had to literally turn down the brightness on my camera because there's more light coming into the room. And I believe that's just really God talking to us and reminding us, as I'm looking and telling you what I'm looking at, that everything is literally like, this is confirmation, like divine confirmation. Is actually pretty crazy, but not really crazy, because, you know, God listens to us and God sees us. Like, God sees me even when I feel like I'm forgotten, even when I feel like I'm crying and nothing is being resolved. Like, God reminds me that they see me. And literally I'm watching the clouds dissipate, and I'm seeing that there was always a blue sky even though the clouds were there. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, hey, if that's not the bow on a message, I don't know what is. If that's not a bow on a message, I don't know. That's crazy. It's not crazy. I need to stop saying it's crazy, because it's not. It's God. It's God. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Yeah, I'm grateful. And I just want to leave y'all with that it will be blue. It will be blue. It was never not blue. It just had clouds. The sky was never not blue. It just had clouds that were covering it. So just like these clouds are going away now, our situations will alleviate and they will become better. The things that we're grieving for, God is going to replace tenfold. Everything is going to turn and work for our good. Period. That's amazing. And I'm grateful. And I'm thankful that y'all are tuned in, y'all tapped in with me to another episode while we talked about just feeling our emotions and just what I'm doing this season and how it's been actually feeling my emotions and like working through them and pushing through them and not being ashamed of them. And initially I was going to talk about how to navigate with grief, but I don't think I have the answers to that. What I do have the answers to is how to embrace your emotions. That's what I'm doing, and I think as time goes on, I'll have more insight on the grieving process, because this is the first time that I've grieved as an adult for something like something that I've known. Like, you know, nobody has really passed in my family, thank God. You know, family, friends that were very close to me, I haven't had that emotion in my adult years. So this is the first, like, it's not even a person, but the first, like, being that in my adulthood has died. And it's been super hard. I've known the kitty for, it's about to be 10 years. Like, he was super young. I really thought we had more time, and that's just not what God planned, and it's okay. I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna figure it out. And as I navigate that, I will maybe come back and show you how I'm navigating through it. But what I will say is I'm embracing all of my emotions from the top to the bottom, and I'm just choosing to flow in and out of them, and I'm not staying in one emotion, and I'm not negating others. And I believe it's been the most helpful thing that I could do on my journey as an alchemist. So thank you all for listening, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, archives.alchemist. We are there and we are visual. But also, if you haven't already, Make sure you follow our social media handles on Instagram, archives.alchemist, as well as TikTok, archives.alchemist, where you could get clips and just more content, personal content that you could edify your community with, and just to have as reminders as you go through your week. And yeah, share this with someone, give us 5 stars, whatever you feel led to do in your heart, do it or not. It's up to you. But thank you all for coming and listening, and I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Mwah. The Alchemist.